Okay, good morning, everybody, and good afternoon to Gordon Area, who's general manager of the Amara Hotel in Singapore. Actually, Gordon and I go back quite a long time. With our paths have crossed during the Shangri-La days, as these tends to do in this industry. It's a very small world, and you know, Gordon's had a really interesting career, a very strong career in hospitality, in some really competitive markets, in many different types of properties, city hotels, resorts, and today I think it will be very interesting to hear from Gordon because in Singapore, there's a lot of discussion around AI and sustainability. So hopefully during the discussion, we'll get into that. But Gordon, why don't you tell us a little bit about your career in hospitality in these incredibly competitive markets? What sort of inspired you to choose the industry in the first place? And, what motivates you to this day to continue? As we're both in our 60s now. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your
Yep.
background and how you got to where you are?
Thank you, Richard. Good morning, listeners, for wherever you are. Um, Thank you for this opportunity, Richard. It's quite interesting. What drove me to join the hospitality industry was when I was 14 and 15 years old. My mother used to work at the Grand Hyatt in Singapore in those days. And I just followed her to work and seen what she does. And because she sometimes works overnight, I sort of spend some time with her. And going into the Hyatt, looking at the chandeliers, the grand lobby they have, and it sort of inspired me, excited me, and gave me that motivation of, wouldn't it be nice to work in such an environment? Well, all dreams, it's a dreams, as you know. And little did I realize that it drew me to it. And so when I reached after high school, I joined the Hilton as a busboy in those days. That position doesn't exist today for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And I worked my way up, and then I spent 7 years in the military in Singapore. As you know, Singapore military service is compulsory, but I decided to extend my contract. And after that, I decided I want to see the world, and what do I know except hospitality? So I joined, in those days, the Meridian in Singapore, Changi near the airport. And I started off as a sales executive and worked my way up. After 5 years, I decided that Singapore, I want something different. And an opportunity came for me to join the Meridian in Thailand. So I joined the Meridian in Thailand. And once when you leave Singapore and you go to Bangkok and Phuket and you start working there, your entire world is so different and you're so overawed by everything. And I decided to stay away and continue in Thailand. So I brought my family over, and one thing led to another. And before you know it, you've been away for 35 years, so traveling all over the world. I think I'm very privileged and fortunate to have traveled to many parts of Asia Pacific. After Thailand, I moved to Malaysia and then to Australia in Melbourne. And from Melbourne, I was given an opportunity to join a company in China. So I was in China for 2 years, and then I moved to Hong Kong, and that's where I met you, Richard, if you remember.
Right.
So I started with the Shangri-La
With
there,
Hotel
and we
Chen, right?
that's
That's
right.
right. Yeah.
I was asked to do a rebranding of the hotel from the Traders to Hotel Jan.
Yeah.
And that's when we started getting to know each other better. And after that 5 year stint, I was asked to go to Manila and do a similar role down there to rebrand the Traders to a Jan. And in Manila, I was there for 5 years. And after being with Shangri-La for 8 to 9 years, I decided to try something different. So, ex-bosses of mine from Shangri-La, in fact, Thierry Duan, who you may know or you
Yes.
remember,
Yeah.
he offered me a job in Thailand, in Phuket, where I started 15 years earlier. And I was there as a general manager with the Dusit Group. And I did that for 2 years. And then they moved me to the corporate office where I was doing a little bit on food and beverage audits and pre openings. After doing that for 2 years, I had another opportunity to go to Vietnam to do a project. And I was there for 6 months. And then after that, I moved to China again. And then finally, I went back to Phuket And then I stayed in Phuket for about 12 years in Bangkok and Phuket, translating up and down.
Right.
And like yourself, I thought I would go into semi-retirement, and then something comes about from Singapore, who they've been looking at me for a couple of years then, and then this offered me a place in Singapore to take over the Amara Singapore.
Right.
What was exciting about this opportunity was the Amara Singapore is a totally local company, local hotel brand. Next year will be our 40th anniversary, and they had done a complete makeover, full renovation costing close to 50 million, and they wanted to reposition the hotel and bring it up. So that was an exciting challenge. And so I took it over about 20 months ago, and here I am today.
Great. That's really interesting. So for people who don't know your property, can you kind of give us a little snapshot of what it was before and then how they wanted you to reposition it, and strategically, if you like, how you went about that, given that it's unique within the Singapore landscape. How if you like, what was your brief from the owners?
Well, the Amara Singapore was a decent four-star hotel located in Tanjong Pagar. Tanjong Pagar, for those who do not know, is in the Central Business District. It used to be the constituency of the first Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew.
Right.
And our owners, who are Singaporean real estate family, they were they had a very strong relationship with the government of Singapore, with dealing in meetings, conferences, and accommodation in those days. And in 40 years ago, Amara Singapore was the only sort of international brand hotel in Tanjong Pagar, and we got a lot of business from the various government ministries, the police force, the Ministry of Education, etc.
Right.
And that relationship developed. So, being a hotel 38 years later, the hotel was a bit tired. They needed a lot of work. And so the owners embarked on a comprehensive full makeover, but with one exception being that it's going to be developed into a upper upscale property. However, with a lot of sustainability prerequisites.
Mm.
For example, and this entire renovation took about 2 years, 18 months to do it. I was brought in midway through the renovation, so I was involved in finalizing the last part of the project. The first wing was completed, the second wing wasn't completed. But interestingly enough, the owner and the next generation, they wanted a sustainable hotel. So, for example, we had to completely have purification water taps in all rooms. We have no more plastic in the entire hotel. Everything was either to be sustainable, recyclable, or technologically advanced by reduce not reducing the headcount, but not replacing those that have left, and not replacing them with people, but with technology.
Right.
So the brief was, number one, to reposition it as an upper upscale property. Number two, to incorporate all the sustainability facets that can be incorporated into the hotel. And number three is to develop a new team, bring in a new team. We must bear in mind that this was just after COVID, because they
Right.
started in 2023.
Yes.
So, because it was COVID and because the hotel was under lockdown for a long period of time, equipment was a bit run down, not serviceable well. Machinery had frequent breakdowns. So, it was a complete and comprehensive renovation job, and it meant a lot of work.
Mm.
In fact, as of last week, we completed all the staff facilities as well, and the basement area and all staff locker rooms,
Mm.
canteens, and all the back of the house is completed last week only.
Wow.
So it's now fully renovated, and that was, I guess, the reason why I was very excited about taking on this project.
Mm. So in terms of your role, I mean, did you were you responsible for going out and finding a project management company, a interior designer, architect, all that kind of stuff? And then, I mean, how do you go about selecting all the contractors and those types? I mean, was that your role, or were you sort of more the strategist in terms of, okay, this is the direction, this is the look and feel. Um, and then how did you go about engaging with people who could help you on this mission?
Okay, the company is actually a real estate company, and because they have a fair bit of residential projects in Singapore, they had the necessary construction,
Yeah,
the architects, the designers, the materials, etc.
yeah,
My role was more operationally. How do we integrate the new concept of the property? How do we ensure that the workflow process is integrated seamlessly, and at the same time incorporating the sustainability aspects of it?
right,
And so our products, our equipment had to be environmentally friendly, and the products would have had to have certain certification with regards to how we can, that it is a sustainable product. And the other part of it was the suppliers of these products and the distributors and how they get their products had to be certified. So that was quite a challenging
right.
initial phase of it. The second phase was how do we recruit and develop a team,
Mm,
and at the same time integrate the different departments because of COVID and because of the lockdown. When everything was back to normal, quite a number of departments or workflow processes and different employees, we were able to sort of, in some aspects, either amalgamate positions, workflow, or in other aspects, introduce new workflow processes to it, using whether it's technology or using digitalization to help in that process. So
oh,
it
that's
was
great.
a very exciting project in terms of trying to blend together. On one side, you have technology, you have sustainability, you have um, the different tools of automation and AI, and on the other side, hospitality, the traditional forms of hospitality where you engage with your guests, where our staff have to welcome them, and the human engagement, which is a critical part of hospitality.
Yeah,
So that was and still is an ongoing challenge as we go
right.
deeper into the
Now,
process.
that's a very bold strategic move. And I mean, I'm wondering how much of it was driven by Singapore's own sort of legislation regarding sustainable businesses. I mean, I don't know whether there is such a thing in Singapore where there's a mandate that hotels have to do XYZ, or whether it was just because it was as a result of being competitive. And as you say, the place was in desperate need. But if you had to put a number on how much it improved on the rate, I mean, if you hadn't done it, presumably the rate would have just continued to sort of stagnate or drop even. And then having done the renovation, presumably they wanted to see a 5-year projection on how it would improve the rate. So
Yeah.
what do you think were the financial benefits? I mean, I don't want you to, obviously can't disclose sensitive information, but in terms of within your competitive set, did it kind of springboard you into a new um, bracket of competitors, or were you still
Um,
competing with the same brands?
Oh, okay. In the case of Singapore, the biggest chunk of your expenses is relating to labor, and
Yeah.
labor is becoming much more expensive. At the
Mm,
same time, Singapore introduced the GST, and now the GST has gone up to 9%. So, labor and management of costs, particularly human cost, is paramount for every general manager in
mm,
Singapore. At the same time, Singapore, from the government perspective, we have to give credit because they had a lot of grants being distributed to hotels and hotels employees who were in the middle of those in their 40 something who want to do what we call a mid-career switch, a mid-career change. So using these grants, first of all, reduces the cost of education, training, and upgrading and upskilling. Number one. Number two is, and using these grants allows you the benefit of uh, re-educating and retraining and reskilling your staff, particularly those that are in the 40 something age group. And that was very beneficial, number one, because a lot of people in their 40s or early 50s or us, we are not familiar with technology. We are
Right.
very uncomfortable pressing buttons or keys, etc., on a laptop, for example. But then the government was able and subsidized heavily, giving grants and giving each Singaporean above 45 an educational grant for them to choose anything relating to AI, digital technology, etc. So that was incentive, and the policy is always if you don't use it, you lose it. So it gave people that opportunity. Number one. Number two is it even allowed you to take a certain amount of time off work to participate or to partake in such
Mm.
courses, and that gives the government gives the employee the necessary confidence that number one, he or she did got time to do their job and to study at the same time, and number three, most importantly, that when their jobs are still secure for them. So that was a massive
Right.
uplift for that.
Mm.
And the other thing the government did was for those employers, companies that participated after a certain within the quota or above the quota, they had incentives whereby it was tax incentives or employee incentives, etc., whereby they were able to reduce their expenses. So it was
Mm.
a twin prong approach and a strategy that the government was able to develop since 2023 onwards.
Wow.
And in the last 2 years, more and more hotels now are embracing AI and
Yeah.
sort of using it, particularly in the back of the house operations.
Right.
If you take finance, for example, where you've got lots of records, etc., everything is now automated. Even almost 95% of the hotels will have what we call a mobile check-in or digitalization on an
Mm.
app to do check-ins now, as well as the traditional form of checking in where you go up to the reception and introduce yourself and give your name and tell them you have a booking. So most hotels, in fact, 95% of them have got this both services because the youth, the millennials, the Gen Zs, they all are very what we call tech savvy.
Yeah.
They are very comfortable using their mobile phones to check in and QR codes and scanning all of these things. And the generation of us, the baby boomers and the 50 somethings, they are a little bit more uncomfortable. So the government has allowed, uh, particularly in hospitality, I'm referring to, has
Right.
allowed all hotels to adopt the gradual, it's a new word, gradualization of technology into hospitality, but at a very moderate pace. And they did not impose stringent requirements whereby the investment cost is going to be heavier. At the same time, allowing you to progress at your own pace with regular audits and updates on
Okay.
the progression of it. So that was a
So
good thing.
that's fascinating. So if you were to tell us what technologies, if you like, had the greatest positive impact, let's say first of all on your employees. I mean, presumably you have a lot less employees now than before the rebranding, and I'm just curious how you think, not necessarily AI specifically, but any other technologies or sustainable ways that technology has been introduced since you did the changeover. What's had the most positive impact on employee well-being, and on productivity, let's say, within your property?
Okay, if you were to go back maybe 10 years ago, we're not looking that far
Mm.
behind. 10 years ago, the staff to room ratio of most hotels in Singapore was about 0.9 to 1.1 if it's a luxury hotel,
Yeah.
the luxury brands. Today, most hotels would be doing a staff to room ratio of between zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.4 at times.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and so now, although wages have grown enormously, that has allowed employers to better manage their people, but at the same time embracing technology or sustainable by first of all adopting a 5 day work week where
Right.
before COVID it was always a 5.5 or 6 day work week. Now
Yeah.
all hotels are 5 day work week.
Right.
Staff do not mind working, let's say, between 9 to 10 hours a day,
Right.
provided they have 2 days off. And the reason being is that they have one day that they can recover and recuperate, and
Mm.
second day is to be with the family, which is the work-life balance has taken on a new dimension since COVID. And I don't think it's only in Singapore, I think it's globally. Most people now are, even the new generations, they want a more work-life balance than let's say the baby boomers, and that has given them a sense of confidence and at the same time made them feel more valued and a closer family relationship. I think that's the biggest impact for
Okay.
lots of staff at every
Right.
level. The
That's
second
great.
thing was because of the government, and Singapore is a small country and the government is proactively involved in every facet of 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 the country. They allow them to there's a lot of leave. For example, you have now parental leave. So you have a parent, let's say a mother who's going to have 3 or 4 days of parental leave apart from their annual leave and apart from any other leave. And
Okay.
now it's even been introduced last year for dads to have parental leave. So you're working. If you look at the numbers, it's you're working less. If you calculate your annual leave, your public holidays, and your childcare leave, it you work probably 10 months of the year.
Right.
And so, in that sense, there is motivation and incentive for staff to continue working. The second thing they did was having part-time work.
Right.
Now, part-time work, particularly for the baby boomer generation, is very prevalent now. And the
Right.
part-time can be, as long as they compete um, up to 24 hours and more a week. And that works up to maybe 3 days of the week.
Right.
And they do get benefits. And they also get supplemental relief and subsidies for that as well.
Mm.
On one hand, they do work to earn a basic living. On the other hand, the government gives them childcare subsidies or medical subsidies, etc., so that people who for whatever reason is not able to fulfill a full-time job will be able to work part-time. And
Okay.
this has in a way I believe improved the productivity of part-time work in Singapore,
Right.
but
Right.
at the same time um, not what's the word to use, not bringing foreign workers,
Right.
because foreign workers in Singapore now is very expensive. There's a lot
Right.
of levies for foreign workers, and because each hotel has got its restrictions, so they encourage more part-time work. So,
Oh.
for example, if you are a Singaporean and if you're in and you've retired after 55, but you still want to do some work to keep yourself active and mobile, then you probably do 2 or 3 days of work a week,
Right.
whether it's helping to drive the cars or to clear the dishes or to do and for particularly in the for female gender is more to do housekeeping, but at the same time instead of doing 15 to 20 rooms a day for the youngsters, you maybe do 6 to 8 rooms a day, or one day of the week when your kids are in school you can do a bit of work and earn a bit of extra income.
That's
So
great. Yeah.
that particular sector of the industry is extremely productive and doing very well in
That's
Singapore.
great. And obviously that then there has a sort of knock-on effect on your
Yes,
profitability and everything else. That's
exactly,
interesting. That's
exactly.
fascinating. So the on the other side of it, I'm curious to see how, if you like, based on your own experience with this project, if you think of AI and the digital transformation, right? How do you think it's really reshaped the customer's journey? You know, we've talked a little bit about the employee and the sort of impact on financially, but and on their mental well-being. So I'm interested to know how it's sort of reshaping the customer journey across, you know, if you like, from the time that they want to book up until they stay in your property and leave. I mean, how is it different in your experience? I mean, because you've had really first-hand experience with this. It's not like you're just thinking about it as a, you
Mhm.
know, as a sort of an idea,
Yeah.
but this is actually something that you've witnessed.
All right. I mean, the thing is, if you were to go back in hospitality now, you're going back 20 to 25 years, and that's not very long in our industry. You'll probably have to send in an email. I would like to book a room and this and that. And then you get a reply back probably in 12 hours or a day later. Okay, what are your dates? What is your rates? And etc. etc. And that process that used to take between, I don't know, 2 to 3 days. Now customers are more demanding, they are less patient, and you can make a reservation online yourself, whether it's using ChatGPT or using any of the online booking agents, etc. Within 6 to 12 hours, you are able to make a booking done. And more the guests are finding it comfortable, convenient, and quick. In the past, Richard, when we were, let's go back 5 to 10 years ago,
Yeah,
if we wanted to fly overseas, you probably make a booking within, or if it's a regional destination, maybe a week or 2 weeks before you planned
right,
it.
right.
Today, more and more people are deciding at the very last minute. So, for example, we have so much of bookings whereby they make a booking yesterday to fly today. And how do I know that? Is because the pickup is massive.
Yeah.
So in the past, your pickup was more a trend between 3, 4 weeks. You can see 6 weeks, 8 weeks. You can see the trend progressing. Now it's within less than a week. Your occupancy can literally double in less than a week,
So
and that's how most of it.
forecasting is very difficult then. I mean, in a
It's
way,
extremely
yeah, yeah,
difficult.
yeah,
Despite all the various advanced tools for forecasting, you
yeah.
really have to see the trend and to some extent use your instinct. And I guess with a bit of experience that we have today, we are able to do it, but you're not always right. And every month when you look at there is no clear trend indicator.
Is it
So
because they're looking, do you think it's because as consumers, we're always looking for last minute deals or Black Friday this or whatever? I mean, they think that the closer they book to the time that they need the product, they're going to pick up a big, you know, a cheap deal. Is it more that,
it
or because people just wait till the last minute for whatever reason?
I think it's both. I think in a city like Singapore, which is like a global city where
Mm,
flights and hub is a transit hub, and a lot of people wait for last minute deals.
yeah.
A lot of people are also planning themselves last minute.
Okay.
I'll give you a very good example. In October, we had the Formula One here, and Formula One is a major event. It's a global audience. You've got it's really people plan a year in advance. Conference organizers, event organizers, they book out a year in advance. 1 month before Formula One, hotels were only averaging between 55 to 65%. 1 month
Wow.
before Formula One. And those were all bookings that were done by the corporate, where you have corporate VIPs, hospitality books, and all
Mm,
of that.
right.
Within the same month, Formula One was October 4th to the 6th. From September 15th upwards, occupancies were just going up from 50, 55, 65. So it was going through like that. And not only in our property, but as well as
Mm,
all the properties. When you speak to your fellow colleagues in other hotels, they tell you something, pickup is massive, pickup is massive.
wow.
And during Formula One, not one hotel that I knew did below 85%.
Wow. Amazing.
And
Yeah.
and and that is with a surcharge of almost 50 to 100% of the normal hotel rates.
Amazing. Yeah.
So so and people say Singapore is expensive, but there is still demand for it. And so that was Formula One. Now, if you go back to a couple months before, Lady Gaga performed in Singapore. Lady Gaga, she's a global icon, everyone
Mm.
knows her. A lot of the regional traffic, in order to avoid staying overnight in Singapore, they took on budget, and Singapore has got lots of budget airlines. They took a lot of budget airlines from, let's say, Manila, Hong Kong, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, all the regional, flew in the morning, watched Lady Gaga, and after the concert, which finished probably about 10ish, they went back to the airport to take a flight back because there were a lot of budget
Wow.
airlines flying at 1, 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
So hotels were impacted in a negative way because they didn't stay a night.
Right.
But in terms of the total, the economy, the secondary economy, if you want to talk about
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
whether it's food and beverage, whether it's transportation, airline, budget flights, they were doing very, very well. And
Amazing.
when you bear in mind that Lady Gaga played 6 concerts in Singapore for 6 days, it had an overall positive impact on the industry and on the economy as a whole.
Wow, that's
So
amazing. Those are some really solid examples. Yeah, that's
yeah,
fascinating. Yeah.
yeah. So people are becoming more discerning. People are becoming more tech savvy. People are looking around, but decisions are made at the very, very last minute here. So
So
it,
if you're, I mean, you're in a fortunate position that you've been able to do this right now, and I mean, if you were to be going to go and work with, say, a startup hotel brand tomorrow, are there any kind of like game changing ideas that you think you've implemented there or that are in Singapore? Any models or that other businesses are currently overlooking? I mean, you've talked about a few of the things that you've implemented there, with the booking side of it. Do you think there are other? Do you think there are hotels out there that are missing the boat?
um, yes, some yes. The thing about Singapore is all the international global chains have embraced technology, and to them, technology is a
Yeah.
part of life and part of the entire process for any hotels. So the standalone hotels, I think, they have limited resources,
Yeah.
I believe, and that's where the government, not not all countries are the same, and I see that, but the government has to play a fairly active role in developing the
Mm,
industry as a whole.
right.
And as a standalone hotel, if you choose to be standalone, and there's nothing wrong with that, you have to embrace technology. There's a lot of government funding and government sponsorship and government subsidized programs, not only in the government, but also in the private sector or in the semi government sectors that encourages workers, number one.
Right.
Number two is, what areas do I see where other industries are not taking? I think sustainability is, in Singapore at least, is becoming a major player in it.
Must have. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, let me give you an example. From 2027 onwards, all flights originating out of Singapore will have to pay a carbon tax levy of between $1 to $4 for every airline ticket.
Mm, mm.
Now, in terms of the cost, it's minuscule, but you can already see where the industry is going towards sustainability,
Yeah. Yeah.
and carbon footprints and carbon tax emissions,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
And so Singapore, being at the forefront of it, every hotel, every business has got to embrace it and face up to it and face the challenges with it and sort of be educated on it.
Right.
But on that part of it, the government is extremely flexible in accommodating your requirements.
Right.
And they are the ones that want to drive, because Singapore has a national policy of going carbon zero by, if I remember, 2030.
Right.
20.
One
So
one of
so
the
it
one of the just to interrupt you quickly there. We one of the areas that I think some of my other guests who have been on this podcast have talked about are in areas where you're kind of like collaborating with vendors, partnerships.
Yes.
And you mentioned that the Singapore government is encouraging businesses to collaborate and partner, almost like a startup kind of a mentality, where they
Yes.
can experiment, like we
Hmm.
did at Hotel Icon, to experiment with different ideas. One of the areas that we had a lot of success, and actually that company has now grown quite rapidly, but they, back in the day when I was there, like 3 years ago, we were experimenting with sustainable uniforms, fabrics made from bamboo and maize and plastic bottles. And that company now has introduced a sort of AI component to the design side of it. So, like when you're repositioning a hotel, you want to redesign all the uniforms. You don't need to get an interior a uniform designer. They will basically put in all your brand DNA, and it will sort of come out with all these renderings and styles, and then you can just choose the fabrics, which are actually more durable. So we did various outlets and housekeeping, and that was before they had the AI component. But it was interesting
Hmm.
because the guests found it very, you know, they thought it was really amazing that hotels were able to produce really efficient and durable uniforms made from sustainable fabrics. But at the same time, the staff had a feel good factor that they were actually wearing something. So it wasn't just
Hmm.
something, a carbon footprint idea that is not tangible. This was a tangible idea. And they've actually had quite a lot of success with some hotels in the region where they're now supplying these. I just wondered if you'd come across anything like that, where partnership models, working with innovative companies like that, innovation, anything like that that you were able to implement, any low hanging fruit where you could see some tangible results in sustainable practices.
Okay, so if you were to, I mean, I'll give you two examples. I'll cite you two examples. Number one is because of sustainability and because we have the owners wanted to have a policy of no plastic in the entire hotel. And you and I know when we travel to hotels, there's always those plastic bottles of water in every room or glass bottles of water. So from the point of view of the housekeeping staff or the room service staff, is they to carry either plastic bottles in, in this cases and cartons or glass bottles. But because the owner had the opportunity to do a full renovation, all our rooms have got purification taps. Now, the first thing is it makes the job less cumbersome and less menial in terms of labor. So
Mm,
housekeeping, yeah, at one time there used to be only housekeeping boys or room attendants, we call them, that just had to be strong, young, and carrying cartons and crates to
mm.
every room.
Yeah.
Now it's all purification taps in every room. So what does that mean? The first thing, it reduces the time taken to clean a room because you don't have to fill up water because it's all available down there. So from, let's say, taking between 45 minutes to an hour to clean a room, you can bring it down by 35 minutes or 30 minutes. And
Mm,
so that's been a national policy, a directive in Singapore for that. So that's the point of view from the staff feeling a sense of working, because housekeeping is a department that actually, if and you and I
yes.
will attest to that, there's a lot of menial work, it's a
Yeah.
lot of heavy equipment, turning over beds, etc. So all of that has now been considerably reduced. That's the point of view from the employee.
Right.
In terms of the customer, uh, we Singapore is a major destination for meetings and incentives, the MICE segment, which you are familiar with. So what happens is now, at one time when they wanted to do a meeting room setup, they had to do something and send it to you, and then you do it internally, and then you got to send it back to them. And that took anywhere from 6 hours to 24, 36, 48 hours. Now, there's meeting planners that have everything diagrammatically done, schematically done.
Mm,
So you as a client, when you look at, let's say, Amar Hotel, and you click on Amar Hotel, and it says, and you just key in U-shape 25 people, it will come up to you within seconds, literally.
mm,
So from the point of view of the customer or the meeting planner or the meeting organizer, what is happening is you can basically choose among three, four different hotels and plot out your layout of your function room and how many tables you can put in, how many meeting rooms you need. What is if it's a wedding, your round tables, how many you can put in. If it's a theater setup or a U shape or a ballroom setup, you can do all of that now within minutes.
Wow.
Things that used to take between
Yeah.
hours now is done in minutes. And
That's
so if
yeah.
you have all of those kind of features in your meeting planners and your website, your event planners, what happens is that the guest or the client or the decision maker can make a decision immediately within a day of what they want to do, how they want to set it up. And so you sort of open technology whereby it's so much more user friendly, you're so comfortable, and you can make quick decisions. Now, the drawback of that is last minute decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need 6 months to make a meeting, you can do it within 2 weeks now.
Right. Right. That's
So,
interesting.
so both. So, what does that do? That basically means that people become less patient.
Mm.
They want things quicker,
Yeah.
and they, you've got to be part of the game. In order to be part of the game, you've got to embrace the technology. Now, it
Right.
doesn't come cheap. Unfortunately, it's very
Yeah.
expensive. But the government does have such solutions available for you.
So really, what you're saying is that these hospitality operators in the next 5 years, they've really got to embrace this to stay competitive. Because if they're not doing it, then they're going to be doing the old way, if you like, with and I think that it's going to suck them back uh, significantly in terms of their payroll and all those things, and they're just not going to be able to compete, right? So I think that it's really interesting that you're in a place where, I mean, it would actually be quite frustrating, I would imagine, to go from a dynamic place like Singapore to then go back and be somewhere like in Phuket where things are done manually and all that. I mean, how do you get your head around that? I mean, that must be hard to sort of, you've got to be very agile to be able to switch from one to the other.
I, I, I mean, looking at the new generation, and forgive me for using
Yeah,
this term "new generation," but looking at the younger generation, you've got to love what you do. And like yourself, Richard, when you opened the icon, which was
yeah,
a was I'm it was an accomplishment that in Hong Kong particularly.
mm,
Um, I think it's because we don't work for the bucks. We just work because we love what we do.
yeah,
We enjoy the camaraderie we have. We enjoy the engagement with guests. We enjoy running around. We enjoy the multifaceted life of a hospitality manager, whereby you
yeah,
just have to you just you every day is different, and you know exactly what I mean when I use
yeah,
that term.
yeah,
Every day is different.
it is.
It's not a routine job. You have to embrace technology. You have to find ways where you have two options. You either outsource, which a lot of companies are doing and a lot
Mm,
of hotels are embracing.
mm,
And second thing, you have to really embrace technology and digitalization of
yeah, yeah,
your operations, particularly back of house, particularly finance, storekeeping,
right.
um, particularly engineering at the back of the house, particularly human resources, which is an important area for hotels. So all of that has got to be either outsourced or um, uh, embracing technology
Right, right.
to so that and that's how you tend to be able to. I won't use the word reduce. I would rather use the word control your costs,
Mm,
because in Singapore it's very, very
yeah.
expensive.
No, I think that's where, you know, at when I was at Icon, I'm collaborating with the School of Hotel Management there. You know, the
Mm,
urgent skills, if you like, the urgent skill gaps that were emerging in the sector were very obvious. And there's a lot of education establishments that provide hospitality education that need to really try and close these gaps now, because if you're not
mhm,
teaching about this new transformation, it's then you're just talking about leadership and management that really is really old school, and because
mhm.
it changes so rapidly. And like you say, people of our generation, we've seen so many changes. I mean, we've been through these ups and downs, and
Yeah.
and we've also survived all these pandemics and financial crises, which are challenges, massive challenges in themselves, where you've got to be thinking on your feet, strategically. I mean, if you think of our generation, that we've been working the last 40 years, all the different crisis
Yeah.
management, we could write a book on it.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
this is, it's not a crisis in that sense, but it's certainly, you've got to have your wits about you. And I think
Mhm.
you've really, you know, explained very, very clearly in this conversation how that struggle, and the fact that you've also had to have a lot of support from your owners to
Yes.
get to where you are. So that's and I think also you've got to be a confident thinker yourself, right, Gordon? I mean, you've got to
Mm.
be able to reach out, and if you've got a few contacts in the area and networks, which we have to maintain, it's very important, obviously. Do you find that a lot of these tech companies and AI transformation companies in Singapore are very aggressive in trying to target the hotel industry? I mean, this is really the last question, but I was keen to know how hard it was for you to reach out, or were people coming to you to look to collaborate?
It's both. A lot of the time they try to link up with you and introduce new AI tools, new designs, and Singapore is actually a sort of a city whereby the government does encourage new tech startups,
Mm,
etc. But that being said, you also have to reach out to your counterparts and other properties. You have to engage with them and share with them and try to probe how did they do this and do
yeah,
that. So
right.
in our industry, I think as hospitality is such a buzzword and such a it's a global industry, but at the same time every country has got its own network of management of expertise of experienced hoteliers like yourself and me, whereby we move around within the same industry, and
Right.
after being in it for 40 over years, despite moving to different countries within the region, you tend to sort of still keep in touch with people.
Yeah.
And and if there's something about our industry is that everyone is always willing to share something with you.
Yes,
That
that's
it's
true.
not like other industries. Wherever you go, if you pick up the phone or if you just WhatsApp somebody who you've not spoken to for 5 years, it was as if, oh, hi mate, how are you doing? And you just
Yeah,
there's no
that's
need to
true.
do any icebreakers.
Yeah, yeah,
It's in our blood. So I think it requires a certain category of people like us that have the passion, the desire, the perseverance, and most importantly, we want to engage with fellow human beings,
yeah, yeah,
which
that's true.
nowadays is
Yeah,
becoming quite a rarity. Everyone's on their mobile phones, and I'm sure
yeah,
you know what I mean.
yeah.
So that being said, I think there's a and the fact of the matter is that every level of take the level of staffing at every level. Everyone today knows what is work-life balance.
Mm,
Everyone wants it. Everyone expects it.
right.
Whether it wasn't in the days when we were both starting up 30, 40 years ago, where we just were driven, passionate,
Yeah.
just to get the month-end salary for the family and all of that. So those days, I don't think will ever come back.
No.
I think hospitality, lifestyle, um, vacationing is going to be more and more expensive, more and
Mm,
more demanding. But I think it's a growing industry,
yeah.
despite whatever anyone says about technology and
Yeah.
digitalization and AI. I think people want solitude. People want to rest and just chill with their
Mm,
friends and family. You're not going to get big hospitality groups coming in, tour groups. I think is a thing of the past. More and more, the four, six, eight people, two families together, or multi-generational families getting together for a break. More multi breaks in the year. I think that's going to be something. So all of this is still going to create demand.
mm,
And I think because it's always going to be in demand, labor is going to become a premium. There's going to be different types of hotels. I mean, 20 years ago, it was just either you're a city hotel or a resort.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Today, you've got communal living, you've got multi-dimensional hotels like in Singapore, they just opened the rainforest, the Mandai rainforest, which is a banyan tree product. So you're going to have different niches of R&R or luxury or lifestyle or holidaying, whatever you call
Mm,
it, where
mm.
people are going to be much more individualistic, more demanding, and people are wanting to even pay a premium to have that
Right,
comfort, luxury, the
right.
desire, the
Yeah,
solitude. So those are going to be premium as we move to
yeah,
the next
yeah.
level and next generation.
Now that's a very good point, and I think that the future hoteliers, like from our generation, there's this concept of resilience. That
Mm-hmm.
and adaptability. You've got to be able to
Mm-hmm.
switch and change, and I think that then there's the other area of which we don't have time to get into. Maybe another podcast is in terms of F&B. Where
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely.
hotels, what kind of F&B hotels have now, and that's a whole another. I mean, a lot of hotel, even the Savoy in London, has outsourced one of their restaurants to Gordon Ramsay, so there's a lot of
Yep.
outsourcing going on and things like that, where you're trying to strategically prioritize food and beverage as your sort of shop window, to give you some competitive advantage, if you like. So but yeah, that's a whole nother, and that has its own
Yes.
plethora of AI and technology attached to it, as you say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's for another day. But Gordon, thanks ever so much for joining us on this really fascinating conversation. And what I'll do is I'll create a transcript around this as well, and write a blog about our conversation, and then attach it with the actual edited version of the conversation. But I really appreciate your help, and I really look forward to seeing you in Singapore. And I hope that our paths will cross again really soon. But thank
Thanks
you.
for having me. Thanks for having me, Richard. And it's been a pleasure and a joy to speak to you and share. And it brings back a lot of fond memories of our times together in Hong Kong.
Yeah,
And I really hope the next time you're in Singapore, let's get it together with the
yeah,
wives and we'll have a nice dinner with some nice wine with it.
that sounds great.
And you
Yeah.
take care. You take
Okay.
care. And if I
Thanks a
don't
lot.
speak to you, happy holidays for
Thank
you
you.
and your listeners.
Yeah, all the
Thank you.
best. Thanks a lot.
Likewise. Cheers,
Okay,
man.
I'm gonna